The abyss is calling. Join the journey into Dark Frontier. Hit subscribe and never miss a nightmare. There are places in this world that feel like they exist outside of normal life. Remote, quiet, cut off. Most people go to those places to find peace. Some people find something else entirely. My girlfriend at the time, Kara, had been pushing for a getaway all summer. We were both burned out. She was finishing her master's thesis. I was grinding through back-to-back weeks at a job I didn't particularly love. And by late September, a long weekend in the middle of nowhere sounded like exactly what we needed. Her coworker had a family cabin about 2.5 hours from home. No neighbors for miles. A lake out front. Cell service only at the end of the gravel driveway. We borrowed the key, packed 2 coolers, and drove out on a Friday evening into the kind of dark that cities don't have anymore. The cabin was perfect, actually. Old wood smell, a stone fireplace, a screened porch that faced the water. We made dinner, sat outside until it got too cold, went to bed early. I remember lying there thinking this was exactly right. This was what we'd needed all summer. The first morning, I woke up before Kara and walked down to the lake. There was a rowboat tied to the dock. Expected, her coworker had mentioned it. What wasn't expected was the second set of footprints in the mud along the bank. Large, deep, leading from the tree line to the edge of the dock, and then stopping, not turning around, not continuing past, just stopping at the water's edge, like whoever made them had stepped off into the lake or simply ceased to exist. I stood there for a long moment, then decided the mud was soft and uneven and I was reading it wrong. I went inside and made coffee and didn't mention it to Kara. That was the first red flag. Looking back, that was the moment I should have paid attention. The rest of Friday and all of Saturday were fine. We kayaked, we read, we cooked a real meal over the fireplace. It felt like the trip we'd promised ourselves. But Saturday night, around 2 in the morning, Kara shook me awake. "There's a light," she said. I sat up. Through the bedroom window across the lake, there was a single stationary point of light sitting in the tree line on the opposite bank. Not moving, not flickering like a campfire. Just a steady, fixed point, aimed, and I know how this sounds, aimed roughly in our direction. I watched it for a few minutes and told her it was probably a porch light or a dock light from a cabin over there. She said she didn't remember seeing any structure on that bank when we were out on the water during the day. I said it was dark now, maybe we'd missed it. We went back to sleep. I didn't sleep. I watched the light until it went out at exactly 4 in the morning. Not a slow fade, not a flicker. It was there and then it wasn't. Sunday afternoon, we were both carrying that low-grade uneasy feeling you can't quite name. The one that makes you quieter than usual, makes you check rooms before you walk into them. Kara found the notebook while she was looking for extra firewood in the supply closet. She called me over without saying why, just, "Come look at this." It was a spiral-bound notebook, water damaged, the cover warped. On the inside front cover, written in handwriting that was careful and deliberate, was a list of dates going back nearly a decade. Just dates, no names, no context. Some were crossed out with a single line, some weren't. The last date on the list was the Saturday of the exact weekend we were staying there. I want to be clear about something. I am not a superstitious person. I don't look for patterns that aren't there. But I stood in that closet holding that notebook and my hands were shaking and I couldn't have told you why exactly, only that something about it felt like being watched from inside a page.
Hello,
We
is anyone
packed
there?
the car within the hour.
The
We
cabin
told
looks empty.
ourselves
Where
we
is
weren't
everyone?
running. We were just heading home a little
Something's
early,
not right
beat the
here.
traffic, get a good night's sleep
I
before
need
the
to get
week
out of here.
started. At the end of the driveway, Kara got a bar of service and called her coworker to say thanks, let her know we were heading out. Normal conversation. And then, almost as an afterthought, Kara asked if anyone else ever used the cabin. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Her coworker said, "No, nobody has a key except my family. We haven't been up since July. Why? Is something wrong?" Kara said no, just curious. We drove home and didn't talk much. We never told the coworker about the notebook. We thought about calling someone. Who? I'm not even sure. But what were we going to report? A list of dates and a light across a lake? I've thought about those dates for years now. What they marked. Whether they were visits or something else entirely. Whether our weekend would have been added to the list, and whether someone would have crossed it out or left it open. That's the thing about a place like that. You go out there to escape everything, and sometimes everything is already there, waiting to see if you'll notice. The next story happened about 3 years after that, and I've never actually said it out loud until now. My brother Eli and I do a fall hunting trip every year. A week in a rental cabin, mostly just decompressing. The hunting is almost secondary. We'd used the same service for years. Always fine, always unremarkable. This particular year, the property was new to their listings, and the description included one phrase I noticed and then didn't think about again until it was too late. Recently reclaimed after an extended vacancy. I remember thinking it was a strange way to word it. First 2 nights, normal, cold, quiet, the good kind of boring. Third night, somewhere around 2, I heard something on the roof. Not branches, we'd had plenty of those. This was rhythmic, step, 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 moving along the peak of the roof from one end to the other, slow and deliberate, and then stopping. I lay completely still. It stopped after about a minute. I told myself raccoon, maybe a bobcat. What I've never been able to shake isn't the sound itself, it's the weight of it. Whatever was up there was heavy. Morning came. I went outside and looked at the roof. On the north-facing pitch, in the moss, there were long parallel scraping marks, evenly spaced. I stared at them for a while. Eli came around the corner and looked up at what I was looking at and went very quiet. "We should do something," he said. I asked what. He said he didn't know. We didn't leave. We're both stubborn, but we stopped cracking the windows at night. We kept the porch light on. We started checking the door locks without discussing why. The woods that had felt normal for 2 days started to feel like they had more depth to them than before, like there were layers behind the tree line we hadn't considered. Last night of the trip, I woke at 3:18 a.m. I checked my watch. I don't know what woke me. No sound, no movement. But I sat up and through the window above the kitchen sink. In the porch light, there was a face, not pressed against the glass, not distorted, just a face, at exactly the right height for a person standing on the porch, looking in, middle-aged, completely expressionless, just looking. I couldn't move. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough that my body had already made the decision to stay still before my brain caught up with what I was seeing. Then Eli's door opened. He'd woken up too, for reasons neither of us has ever fully explained, and I looked toward his room for maybe half a second. When I looked back, the face was gone, not retreating, not ducking to the side, just absent, the way a thought disappears when you try to look directly at it. Eli came into the kitchen. I pointed at the window. We stood there in silence for a long time. Then he said, "Did you see someone?" I said yes. That was all either of us said. We called the sheriff's non-emergency line in the morning. A deputy came, walked the perimeter, found nothing he could act on. He mentioned, keeping his voice very level while he said it, that the cabin had been sitting vacant for about 4 years before the current owners bought it. I asked why. He said he wasn't sure, moved on to something else. We checked out that morning. I've turned it over hundreds of times since then. The thing I keep landing on is this. The man at the window wasn't startled when I looked at him. There was no flinch, no adjustment. He'd already been there, already been watching, and he looked exactly like someone who had done this before and expected it to go the same way it always had. One more. This one's shorter, but it's the one I think about the most. The summer after my junior year of college, I spent 6 weeks doing trail survey work for a conservation nonprofit. Me and one other volunteer, a woman named Portia, covering a stretch of protected woodland about 4 hours from the nearest city. We stayed in a small government station cabin. One main room, 2 cots, a wood stove, a hand pump for water outside, a solar panel for basic lighting, no lock on the front door, no cell service unless you drove 20 minutes to the service road. The understanding was that nobody came out this far without a reason, and for the most part that held. 5 weeks in, the woods felt like home. We knew which trails connected where, we knew the animal sounds, we knew what quiet was supposed to sound like out there. That's the part that matters. We knew what normal was. One night near the end of week 5 around midnight, I heard the hand pump. One long metal groan. The kind it makes when someone pulls the handle with both hands, then nothing. Portia was on her cot across the room. I looked at her. She was already looking at me. Neither of us spoke. In the morning, the collection basin outside had more water in it than carryover from the previous day could account for. Not a little more, noticeably more. We logged it, told ourselves a ranger must have come through, and kept working. The next night I woke up and the cabin door was open. Not all the way, 3 or 4 inches. The wedge I used to prop it shut knocked loose or pulled free. Cool air moving in from the dark outside. I got up, closed it, reset the wedge, went back to my cot. I didn't wake Portia. I told her in the morning. She nodded slowly and didn't say much, which told me she'd been thinking about the pump. 4 days before we were scheduled to wrap up the survey, we found it. 1.5 miles up the main trail, just off the path in a small natural clearing, someone had set up a camping chair, canvas seat, aluminum frame, positioned upright, not collapsed, not abandoned on its side like something left behind by accident. Set up, deliberate, facing back down the trail in the direction of our cabin. Portia and I stood there and looked at it for a long time without saying anything. Then she said, "That's facing our window." She was right. The geometry of it was exact. Our supervisor pulled us out 2 days early. She handled it calmly, professionally. Said it was almost certainly an illegal camper who hadn't realized the area was occupied. Rangers swept the site, confirmed the chair wasn't any team's equipment, found remains of a campsite about a quarter-mile off trail, recent fire ring, flattened ground cover, but no person, no gear left behind. Just the chair and evidence that someone had been living out there close to us for what the Rangers estimated was most of the time we'd been there. My supervisor said not to worry. She said it with steady eye contact and a reassuring tone, and I almost believed her. I would have believed her completely if she hadn't, just before getting in her truck, glanced back at the tree line with an expression I wasn't supposed to see. I've thought about those 6 weeks differently ever since, about how settled we'd felt, how familiar the woods had become. We thought we knew what was out there because we'd been walking it every day. But familiarity isn't the same as knowledge. Someone had been in those trees the whole time, watching us establish our routines, learning our schedule, understanding exactly which window we slept behind. The chair wasn't facing approximately the right direction. It was aimed precisely at the right window. That's not interpretation. I checked. And that's the detail I can't put down, no matter how long I carry it.